वेलकम फ्रेंड्स. विद्यार्थी मित्रांनो, याच्या अगोदरच्या व्हिडिओमध्ये आपण 1.3 द कॉप अँड द एंथम या पाठाचे सविस्तरपणे आइस ब्रेकरच्या ज्या ॲक्टिव्हिटी आहेत याची माहिती घेतलेली आहे. या तीनही ॲक्टिव्हिटीची सविस्तर माहिती आपण व्हिडिओमध्ये घेतलेली आहे. त्याच पद्धतीने त्याच व्हिडिओमध्ये आपण आपल्या या द कॉप अँड एंथम या पाठाच्या लेखकाचा परिचय सुद्धा करून घेतलेला आहे. जर तुम्ही तो व्हिडिओ पाहिला नसेल तर त्याची लिंक डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्समध्ये दिलेली आहे. तो तुम्ही व्हिडिओ पहा आणि त्याच्यानंतर हा व्हिडिओ पहा. विद्यार्थी मित्रांनो, आजच्या व्हिडिओमध्ये आपण द कॉप अँड द एंथम या पाठाचं रीडिंग पाहणार आहोत. रीडिंग म्हणजे वाचन. हा व्हिडिओ संपूर्ण पहा, कारण 1 बाय 1 लाईन बाय लाईन या पाठाचं वाचन या व्हिडिओमध्ये केलं जाणार आहे. चला तर मग आपण व्हिडिओला सुरुवात करूया. सोपी लेफ्ट हिज बेंच अँड स्ट्रोल्ड आउट ऑफ द स्क्वेअर and across the level sea asphalt where Broadway and Fifth Avenue flow together. Up Broadway he turned and stopped at a luxurious cafe. Sophie had confidence in himself from the lowest button of his waist upward. He was 7 and his coat was trim and his neat black bow had been presented to him by a lady missionary on Thanksgiving Day. If only he could reach a table in the restaurant unsuspected, success would be his. The portion of him that would show above the table would raise no doubt in the waiter's mind. A roasted mallard duck, thought Sophie, would be about the thing with a bottle of wine and then some cheese, a cup of coffee and cigar. $1 for the cigar would be enough. The total would not be so high as to call forth any extreme of revenge from the cafe management, and yet the meat would leave him filled and happy for the journey to his winter Iceland. But as Sophie set foot inside the restaurant door, the head waiter's eye fell upon his tattered trousers and decadent shoes. Strong and ready hands turned him about and conveyed him in silence and haste to the sidewalk and averted the ignoble fate of the menaced mallard. Sophie turned off Broadway. It seemed that his route to the coveted Iceland was not to be an easy one. Some other way of entering the limbo must be devised. At a corner of 6th Avenue, electric lights and cunningly displayed wares behind plate glass made a shop window attractive. Sophie took a stone and dashed it through the glass. People came running round the corner, a policeman in the lead. Sophie stood still with his hands in his pockets and smiled at the sigh of brass buttons. "Where's the man that done that?" inquired the police agitatedly. "Don't you think that I might have had something to do with it?" said Sophie with a friendly voice, as one greets good fortune. The policeman refused to accept Sophie even as a clue. Men who smash windows do not remain to chat with the police. They take to their heels. The policeman saw a man halfway down the block running to catch a car. With drawn club, he joined the pursuit. Soapy, with disgust in his heart, drifted along, twice unsuccessful. On the opposite side of the street was a restaurant of no great pretensions. It catered to large appetites and modest purses. Its crockery and atmosphere were thick, its soup and napery thin. Into this place Soapy betook himself without challenge. At a table he sat and consumed beefsteak, flapjacks, dog nuts and pie, and then he told the waiter the fact that the menaced queen and himself were total strangers. "Now get busy and call a cop," said Soapy, "and don't keep a gentleman waiting." "No cop for you," said the waiter with a voice like butter cakes and an eye like the cherry in the Manhattan cocktail. "Hey, con." Neatly upon his left ear on the collar's pavement, two waiters pitched Soapy. He arose joint by joint as a carpenter's rule opens and dusted his clothes. Arrest seemed now but an elusive dream. The Iceland seemed very far away. Policeman who stood before a drugstore 2 doors away laughed and walked down the street. Soapy was seized with a sudden fear that some dreadful enchantment had rendered with him immune to arrest. He was in a state of panic, and when he came upon another policeman laughing, longing grandly in front of a glittering theatre, he caught at the immediate straw of disorderly conduct. On the sidewalk, Soapy began to yell drunken gibberish at the top of his harsh voice. He danced, howled, raved, and otherwise disturbed the skies. The policeman merely twirled his club, turned his back to Soapy, and remarked to a citizen, "'Tis one of them lads' celebration the goose egg they give to the Hartford College. Noisy but no harm. We have instructions to let them be." Disconsolate, Soapy stopped his unavailing racket. Would never a policeman lay hands on him. In his fancy, the Iceland seemed an unattainable Arcadia. He buttoned his thin coat against the chilling wind. In a cigar store, he saw a well-dressed man lighting a cigar at the swinging light. He had set his silk umbrella by the door on entering. Soapy stepped inside, grabbed the umbrella, and sauntered off with it slowly. The man at the cigar light followed hastily. "My umbrella," he said sternly. "Oh, is it?" sneered Soapy, adding insult to petty larceny. Well, why don't you call a policeman? I took it. Your umbrella. Why don't you call a cop? There stands one on the corner. The umbrella owner slowed his steps. Soapy did likewise, with a premonition that luck would again run against him. The policeman eyed Ed too curiously. Of course, said the umbrella man. Well, you know how these mistakes occur. If it is your umbrella, I hope you will excuse me. I picked it up this morning in the restaurant. If you recognize it as yours, why I hope you will. Of course, it's mine, said Soapy savagely. The ex-umbrella man retreated. The policeman hurried to assist a tall blonde in an opera cloak across the street in front of a street car that was approaching 2 blocks away. Soapy walked eastward through a street damaged by improvements. He hurled the umbrella angrily into an excavation. He muttered against the men who wear helmets and carry clubs. Because he wanted to fall into their clutches, they seemed to regard him as a king who could do nothing wrong. At length, Soapy reached one of the avenues to the east, where the glitter and turmoil was but faint. He dragged himself toward Madison Square, for the homing instinct survives even when the home is a park bench. But on an unusually quiet corner, Soapy came to a standstill. Here was an old church, quaint and rambling and gabled. Through one violet-stained window, a soft light glowed, where no doubt the organist loitered over the keys, making sure of his mastery of the coming Sabbath anthem. For there drifted to Soapy's ears sweet music that caught and held him transfixed against the convolutions of the iron fence. The moon was above, full and radiant. Vehicles and pedestrians were few. Sparrows twittered sleepily in the eaves. For a little while, the scene might have been a country churchyard, and the anthem that the organist played cemented Soapy to the iron fence, for he had known it well in the days when his life contained such things as mothers and roses and ambitions and friends and immaculate thoughts and dollars. The conjunction of Soapy's receptive state of mind and influences about the old church brought a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He viewed with rising horror the pit into which he had trembled, the degraded, days, unworthy desires, dead hopes, wrecked faculties, and base motives that made up his existence. And also in a moment his heart responded thrillingly to this strange mood. A strong impulse moved him to battle with his disparate fact. he would pull himself out of the mire and would make a man of himself again. He would conquer the evil that had enslaved him. There was time he was young at. He would resurrect his old eager ambitions and pursue them without faltering. Those solemn but sweet organ notes had set up a revolution in him. Tomorrow he would go into the roaring downtown district and find work. A fur importer had once offered him a place as driver. He would be somebody in the world, he owed. Sophie felt a hand laid on arm. He looked quickly around into the impassive face of a policeman. "What are you doing here?" asked the policeman. "Nothing," said Sophie. "Then come along," said the policeman. 3 months on the island, said the magistrate in the police court the next morning. Written by O. Henry. O. Henry यांनी लिहिलेला हा धडा, या धड्याचं वाचन आपण संपूर्णपणे पाहिलेलं आहे. विद्यार्थी मित्रांनो, याच्यानंतर या पाठाच्या खाली, या धड्याच्या खाली ज्या ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंगच्या ॲक्टिव्हिटी दिलेल्या आहेत, या संपूर्ण ॲक्टिव्हिटीवर आधारित व्हिडिओ लवकरच अपलोड केला जाणार आहे. म्हणून तुम्ही या चॅनलला सबस्क्राईब करा आणि बाजूला दिलेल्या बेल आयकॉनलाही क्लिक करा, म्हणजे तुम्हाला या चॅनलवर अपलोड झालेल्या व्हिडिओचं नोटिफिकेशन लवकरात लवकर मिळेल आणि तुम्हाला तो व्हिडिओ पाहता येईल. संपूर्ण व्हिडिओ पाहिलात याच्याबद्दल धन्यवाद फ्रेंड. पाहत रहा जाधव ऑनलाईन एज्युकेशन. धन्यवाद धन्यवाद धन्यवाद.